Hello and welcome to Local Impact. You can make a difference. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to last week's guest, who perhaps this week's guest may have met. We're all fellow authors, the most incredible, inspired activists, and you will find that up on my Corruption Chronicles page. So if you want to find out what we talked about last week, go to Corruption Chronicles. Tonight, we have Natalie and Evelyn Kelly with us. Evelyn and Natalie are mother and daughter. Both Natalie and Evelyn have had experience in the things that our local impact listeners are very interested in. If anyone's joining us, you're welcome to ask questions. We're going to talk about how to talk to legislators so they listen, and even more important, probably what not to do when you're talking to legislators or trying to influence them, the art of effective advocacy, how citizens can influence policy and create real change, and what to consider before running for elective office. So that'll include maybe some campaign basics, and we may do a little bit of acting out of a situation so that we can do kind of a question and answer session. My goal is that everyday citizens can engage effectively with government and even step into leadership. And I know that's what Natalie and Evelyn have been thinking about as well. Natalie has over 30 years of working with legislators. She was the youngest female director in the Florida Senate. She worked in Washington, D.C., and she's led statewide advocacy. She understands how lawmakers think, what makes them tick, what moves the needle. Evelyn has actually run for office. She's worked on multiple political campaigns, and she has firsthand insight into what it really takes to step into the arena. Tonight, if it's your first time, that's free. If you'd like to sign up to come to see more wonderful speakers every month, it's $25 a month, and you can come every week, or you can even sign up for a year for $250. That helps us cover our costs and keep our podcasts and YouTube memberships all up and running. Tell us about the book you've written, even though it's not necessarily relevant tonight. Tell us what you've been working on together and where people can find it.
Mother and I have been traveling for the last 3 decades. And as a mother and daughter, now just think of that, mother and daughter. Usually people are like, I can't believe you're traveling with your mother. Yes, I love traveling with my mother. So
I
we've
did
been
too.
traveling
Yep.
3 decades, and we have traveled the world to 90 countries, all continents, and all 50 states.
Wow.
And what we decided after a lot of people said, why don't you write your experiences? We've written our first book, Have a Love Affair with Travel, which was about the world, traveling the world.
What a nice cover.
It's experiences riding a camel or experiences under the Eiffel Tower during a thunderstorm.
So we want people to travel,
Yeah.
but we want them to travel stress-free. So in order to travel stress-free, you need tips before you even travel, what you need to know. And so we do that in these 2 books. Not only do we have 79 very short stories in both books, we also have a whole section, how to travel. And you think that's an oxymoron, but it's true. You can do that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just traveled a long distance from where you live, from California, late last night to Florida, and got in early this morning.
And you look great. I can't believe it. I don't know if I'd look that good if I'd done that journey. So you're in Florida now, is that right? Okay.
Correct, Central Florida.
Right. And so where can people get your book?
It is on Amazon. Have a Love Affair with Travel, or Have a Love Affair with the USA.
That really segues nicely into what we're doing, because I think a whole lot of being good in local politics or national politics is being able to understand different cultures and how they think and adapt, and be a creative problem solver, be able to cope with the diverse cultures, diversity of ideas. And hi, Jen.
Hi.
Is there some way people can reach you if they want to talk with you about travel or
Yes.
or
Yes.
what we're talking about tonight?
Go to our website, www.travelersatheart.com. So we're travelers, both of us, we're travelersatheart.com. You can reach out there, or you can just email me at natalie@travelersatheart.com.
Oh, that's pretty easy to remember. Stepping into, I don't even like to call it the political arena I like to call it the public service arena because I've never been good at politics. I hate politics, but I really love community service. On our first one, how to talk to legislators so they listen, what not to do. What can you teach us about that? After 30 years, you've probably got a lot to tell us.
Actually, I'm really close to 40 years. I'll tell you the very first thing. Very first thing you need to have is a good attitude when you go in and you talk to legislators. If you go in with a chip on your shoulder, if you go in and you start talking party and I don't like your party or, things like that, forget it. That's going to be the number one thing that's going to push them aside and just not even think about you or even consider that you're credible with any of your information. So
they
please
switch off if you
Yes.
talk politics or are not positive.
When you go into them, you have to look decent. We have seen some individuals that would come in with their hats on backwards and old flannel shirt on, and they say, "Well, hi there, Kurt," or whatever. And that was our son was a state representative, or my son, her brother. So he would have people that would do that. This is one thing, respect, and she's bringing that up.
That's a very good point. Respect is a very, you talked about it right at the beginning. This is about public service. It's not about politics. It's about public service. And when people run for office, no matter if it's localized office, all the way up to maybe your state legislators or governor or even Congress, it's about public service, what you should be going for.
That's the intent. That is the intent.
Exactly. But there's also respect for those individuals because talk a lot about what they have to go through when you run. I know that you may know this.
Jen.
Yeah. Okay, Jen, I'm going to tell you, you understand it's tough. It's a tough job to run.
We have some legislators who I think they're actually afraid of the public. They don't want to hear, they don't want to open the mics to the public. It demonstrates a huge lack of respect for the public. And it goes both ways. If you're meeting with a legislator, treat them with respect. If you would like to be treated with respect, you get what you dish out. So I like that.
You're exactly right. You're right. It goes both ways. But remember, it's about public service. And if you're going in there for other purposes, maybe they don't want to listen to you. Maybe they don't want to respond to you, or maybe they won't take your call, things like that. So you'll see what type of person is running for an office. It's about public service.
Really interesting because our speaker last week is an activist, but the reason she was so successful is because she made friends with everybody. She didn't choose parties. She worked issues.
Let me just go back to what you just said. Build relationships. That's what she did. She built those relationships, and that's what you need to do. And it's not fake. You want to go in, you want to build that rapport with them. If you went to the same university or if you have family, friends or anything like that, you build that relationship because that builds that trust, and you want that trust, and you want to be able to be what I call a texting friend. So you want to be able to have their cell phone because if something's going on the floor of the Senate or something, you can text them and say, listen, this is not a good direction. This is going to impact the local area, and this is the reason why. So it is very important to build that relationship. But it also goes back to that respect for the office. Maybe not the individual. You may not even like the individual that you're going in and talking to, but that's not the point. The point is you've got an issue or you got a budget item that you're trying to get into the budget, and you're going in and you're educating them. You're educating you're an advocate, but you're educating them on an issue. And when you go in, you want to make sure you've got your points, you got your ducks in a line, you got the points, you've got the research to back it up. But also remember that a lot of members, a lot of elected officials have very short attention spans. There's a reason for that because everybody's pulling them in different directions. You've got to go in with a purpose, and you go in and you state your request. You give the backup information and also a story. They love those stories, especially localized stories, because they care about that. Why? Because you're a voter. That's important. You're a voter. Well, as long as you do that and then you provide that request again, you let them know, and it's very short, you'll get your message across.
My son would tell that some of the people would come in with stacks of things and say, I brought you something to read. And here is a book, and here is an article, and here
they don't have time.
So that's why the next thing that she wanted to mention is very important, the one pager.
The one pager. It is extremely important to have what we call a one pager. Some people will call it other types of things, but it's just a document. It's a one-page document that gives the request, the backup information, why it's important, any stats, but just maybe one or two stats, ROI, which is return on investment. Then on the bottom again is your request. You want to hit them again. The request. That's your one pager. And then you leave it with.
Do you follow up after that? What do?
Yes.
You leave it with them, then what happens?
First of all, I want to say that the legislative assistants are the assistants to the local office, whether it's a county commissioners or school board or mayor or legislators or congressmen, they are just as important because they are your gatekeeper and you want to build relationships with them too as well. They can make you or they can break you. If you're rude to them, if you treat them with disrespect, you're not coming back into that office. You shouldn't come back into that office. When you go in, after you make your point and you leave your one pager, you want to take a photo with, because remember, they're always running for office. And so you'll want to take a photo with them and you'll want to say, listen, we're going to put this on social media and we're going to tag you so you can put it on your social media. And they will do that. They love that. They love getting their message across, that they're meeting with their local constituents. That's extremely important. Then you follow up. But I never follow up with an email. I follow up with snail mail. Now, why? Because most people don't do that. That's a lost art now. So when you get a card from you or a letter written, even handwritten, if you write that letter, you write on that card. I always have just a little card and I just write, thank you so much for meeting with me. We appreciate you being a champion for behavioral health and I'm looking forward to working with you. So I just put that in the mail. I have a little mail budget for stamps, which a lot of people don't even have nowadays. But I do that because they remember that. And they'll say, Natalie, I got your card. I really appreciate that. Most people don't even do that nowadays, and they don't.
And the good thing about having a picture with them then is that you can refer back to that and they will remember who you are because they are meeting thousands of people. Anything else on the art of effective advocacy?
We built the relationship, the staff, the follow-up. I think those are really the key.
One of the reasons I think that the assistants and the aides are so important is because they're the ones who are doing the research. They're the ones who are doing the reading, who are pulling the information, who are organizing it. Tell me if I'm wrong about this, but it seems to be the case. If you can get them on your side, then you're much, much closer to getting the legislator on your side.
They are critical and they are key because the legislator is the face. Now, they're meeting with so many people. It's the staff who do a lot of the legwork. They do the research, just like you said. They do the interaction with the community. Sometimes they actually have to go out into the community and in lieu of the legislator or with the mayor because they're at another event. So they're going to a lot of the events. And remember, they're the gatekeeper. They don't like you because maybe you were rude to them or they thought that you were rude to them. They're not going to let you come back in for another meeting, or it may be a long time, or you may miss your vote or miss your point. They are extremely important part of the business. And I think that's really important for you to understand that this is a business. It's public service, but it's a business because their point is that they're working for the constituents. They're working for you. And that is a business. And that staff there, they are the funnel that goes to that mayor or that county commissioner or legislator.
Natalie, can you tell them about some mistakes to avoid? What should you avoid? Should you not do?
Never go in and speak to a mayor or a legislator, like say a senator, and say, yo, Johnny, I'm a voter of yours and I want you to support this. And if you don't, I'm going to make sure you don't get elected. What did I just do?
That's extortion.
People do it all the time. But I call them by their first name. You never do that. Now, you only do it if they're their next door neighbor. Even my brother, when we were up in the legislature, I never called him Kurt. It was always
Hmm.
called Representative Kelly because
Hmm.
that is the nature and that is the position. You always do that. I always tell people, I know you feel more comfortable and maybe it looks like you know people. Maybe on the outside, maybe that looks good, but on the inside to that legislator who doesn't really know you and you're sitting there calling them Johnny, that is not going to be good. Always call them by mayor or county commissioner or legislator, a house member, a congressman. And then again, you would always want to make sure you go in and you give them your point of view, what you're requesting, your background, your information, your story, and your one pager. And the timing is very, very important. I always recommend, we always will have a legislative day at the Capitol, or you'll have a day at the county commission or something like that with your advocacy group. Always remember to sit down and meet with them in their district office because you'll have more time to be able to sit down and talk with them. And that's when you're building that relationship. You don't want to wait to go up to Washington, D.C. and try to build a relationship and sit down and meet with your senator because I can guarantee you, most likely, you're not going to be able to get in. You
Right.
may be able to get in the district.
That's great advice. How can citizens influence policy and create change?
This is my favorite part. There's a difference between advocacy, being an advocate, and
Hmm.
lobbying or being a lobbyist.
Or being an activist.
Activist is closer to being an advocate than it is
Right.
to be a lobbyist. But let me just go in and show you the difference here. The lobbyist is someone who actually gets paid. You have a contract with a company. Let's say you represent a company and that company or a group will advocate or pay you to lobby for them. And usually in each state's different or each county's different. You usually will have to register because you want to know if you're
Mhm.
getting paid
Yes.
to influence. An advocate would be somebody that, like in my world, we're behavioral health. We support those people with mental illness or with somebody with opiate addictions or suicide prevention. All
Hmm.
that world would be advocacy because since we get state money, we can't hire a contract lobbyist. That would be illegal.
Oh, I see.
So we have to be advocates. That's
Hmm.
why we have to be smart. And we have to know how to educate legislators and get them on our team and find a champion in the legislature or find a champion in your local district that will go to bat for you, that will say, I want this issue. I love this issue. I've been through this. I had addiction issues in my past, and I am going to fight for them. You need to find that champion and you need to find those team. I always call the team. They may not be that champion that will be that number one person, but you'll always have that team of legislators or you will always have that team of school board members that will fight for you, your cause, because you don't get paid to lobby. You're an advocate.
You're
And
active.
activist is always the same thing. You don't get paid to do that. An activist would be somebody that is so passionate about
Hmm.
their issue that they live and breathe that particular topic. That's kind of your difference between an
Mm.
advocate.
Then how do citizens influence policy and create change?
That's where you have to be smart. That's where you've got to go in and you build those relationships with those local leaders or your legislators or with your congressman. Let me tell you the reason why I talked about the difference between lobbying and advocacy is because lobbyists, they're paid to influence, but they also can influence through money.
Hmm.
Lobbyists have money. There's a handful of lobbyists, like in the state of Florida, that we all know that can give millions. Then there's your smaller lobbyists, but they also, the contract lobbyists, but they also give money, just not to that extent. You know what? You just have to understand that money plays a part. And you can't look at it as, oh, that's terrible and that's evil. You can't look at it that way. You have to learn how to play the game and to beat them at the game, which means I don't have the money. We don't have the PACs. We can't hire the big contract lobbyists. In fact, I'm better than those contract lobbyists, but I don't have the money to give to legislators. I have to do it in a different way. I have to do it by educating, finding that champion, by getting a team of legislators, and by building a force of advocates that will go in and write and come up to Tallahassee or go meet them in their district office and letting them know how important behavioral health is or how important suicide prevention is and how fun those type of things. That's where you have to be smart. You're probably not one of those big time lobbyists. I'm not one of those big time lobbyists, and I've been in this world for almost 4 decades, but I know how to get things done and I know how to get a bill passed and I know how to get money in the budget because you've got to play the game and you got to beat them at the game.
You know what? I like what Natalie said about the district. That is so important. We will have people that will run up to Tallahassee on the days or when they're in session, but that's not the time to build your relationship that you're going to get anything done as a citizen advocate. And you ask that question. What can they do? They've got to start in their district, got to start locally and work with them.
What do you think you need to consider before you run for office? Any office? What do you need to consider?
Oh, we're going to do some questions and answers.
Okay, let's do it.
Natalie is thinking of running for office.
Let's say that I am thinking about it, but I'm not really. But that's what
We're pretending.
These are some questions that if you run for office, you need to consider these questions. Natalie, why do you want to run for office?
So that question is extremely important. You need to have a purpose. The purpose can't be because I care for children and I'm for better education. Too broad. It's got to be more specific. Because I am from Marion County, I've lived here for 40 years. I am concerned about the extreme growth that's happening here in the state of Florida. I am for smart growth, limited smart growth. If you don't have something specific like that, now it can't be so specific and you really don't want to be just one issue. You can possibly win on one issue if it is a big issue that's happening.
That would be a big issue.
But it had to be a real big issue.
The growth would be a big issue for
this
our
particular
county
area.
because they are mowing down our beautiful live oak trees.
Oh, us too. How many issues is a good number?
I would say you can come up with maybe 2, 3, or even 4. If you go on beyond that, then it gets too busy.
Right.
But you want to have just a couple of really good key issues. And what you hear a lot about is usually the same things. So I hear them all the time. We want, especially here in Florida, school choice, and we want to protect the children. You hear these things over and over. When I hear them, I roll my eyes. Kind of like a script that we see all the time. Probably works because they did a poll in the district to see what polls the highest. I get it. I know you want to get elected, but at the same time, you've got to have a purpose. If you really want to be a statesman, a stateswoman, if you really, really want to run for office, then you need to have a purpose.
But Natalie, are you prepared for the public scrutiny? Running for office, they have all kinds of things. Remember now, you will be in the public. Are you ready for that?
So,
you want a private life?
When you're running for an office, even your local office, they'll go through your social media. They'll even go through your likes. And if there's a like that could be off and it's maybe doesn't poll high, or if it's a negative polling in your area, they're going to use it against you. So you just have to remember, be prepared, because they'll look into your past. They will look at things, maybe memberships of some organizations or anything like that, that they think that they can use against you. Or because of AI, they can even make up things and it
That's
looks
what
real.
I was going to say, because I've always been squeaky, squeaky, squeaky clean. I've died on a few hills on issues, but I've been squeaky clean. So they just make it up. And I used to joke because I wasn't sleeping with anybody, but I used to joke, oh, I have to just read the paper to find out who I'm sleeping with now. Because what people would say is, oh, she just voted that way because she's sleeping with him. Well, no.
You have to have real thick skin in this
Are you
process.
prepared for that?
Yeah. Are you? Yeah.
Are you prepared for that, Natalie?
You know what? I don't even know how people do it, to tell you the truth, just because of things like that. And then they will take things that you may have voted on. Let's say you voted on this big package, this big bill or an issue, but it had a lot of different things in it. And then there's this one little thing that this advocacy group is totally against, and they will aggressively come after you just because of that one little thing. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to answer to that?
Can your family handle this?
And
Ooh.
that's a very important question. Make sure if you're ever thinking about running for office, and no matter what level, is your family ready? Are they ready to not have you at home a lot? Are they ready to read social media that you're out there sleeping with somebody when you're not sleeping with somebody? You would need to sit down with your family and talk it through. Let them know that these things can happen. Just understand it. You just have to let it roll off you if you continue moving forward with it.
Natalie, are you really ready to raise money?
Oh,
Money. I mean, we don't need any money. All we have to do is go out and talk to a few people, shake their hands and speak. And that's all we have to do to get elected.
that is the toughest thing when you're running for an office. It's raising money. A lot of people think that, well, I'm going out there. You've got that purpose and you've got your little elevator speech down and you've got friends and you're getting out there and you're going to all of the events, but you're not raising money. That's going to be a problem because you're thinking, oh, well, I can maybe put in $10,000 here. And then you're still not raising any more money. Well, I'm going to have to go take a loan out and I'll put another 50,000 in because there was an article about me that was false and you've got to reach out to your voters in a mailer or with social media because you have to have a social media plan. I mean, there's all expense to go to that. See, there's all things that could happen and you have got to be able to raise money unless you are financially secure. You're going to need to raise money. Now, how do you do that? You go to your friends. You've got to have a group of friends that will commit to an amount of money. And you need to make sure you have timelines that you're reaching this amount of money by the end of this month so that when you put in a report, because usually you have to submit a report on how much money you raise, people can see, oh, wow, she's raised 100,000. That's pretty good. You know what? Maybe I want to get involved with her. Do you see what I mean? When you start raising that money and showing, then that looks like people are on board. And people always want to be with the person who is popular or is raising money or so on. Raising money is the key. I have a friend of mine who's running for Congress. I had a talk with him. I said, you have to understand, if you don't raise a certain amount by this time, you really need to reconsider it because this congressman is known for destroying his opponents. He's going to come out and say all sorts of things about you, whether it's true or not. So you've got to be ready because why? Because you're going to have to go and put some mailers out there to your people, to your party, and say what this guy's about. Sometimes you have to go negative, unfortunately. And unfortunately, nowadays, you have to do that. But you have to raise money in order to do those things. Number one, to defend yourself, promote yourself, and promote what you're doing. You've got to get to your constituent, your people.
One time that our family ran for office. I think my husband ran for county commissioner. We're well known in the county. I mean, we go out and we shake hands and we go to meetings and he's an excellent speaker. And then when those votes started coming in, Where'd all those votes come from? I mean, they were people that we did not reach. So how are you going to reach these people? Money.
It's through money. It's a whole process, and it depends on what you're running for, whether it's local office or state legislature or for Congress. But there is a whole process of knowing who your targeted audience is. You've got to know that, and then you've got to communicate with them. Now, how do you do that? A lot of it is through mailers.
To likely voters, you have to understand that and get those names from your supervisor
Right.
election. Yeah.
And also another way is by calling them, but it's actually quicker to get it out through mailing and social media. But remember, not everybody's on social media. You think they are, but they're not.
Natalie, do you really understand this office do you understand how the process works, or you just think it's really nice? Hey, look, I'm going to go to Tallahassee and I'm going to be a good, strong voice in Tallahassee.
If you have never been to a county commission meeting, how can you run for county commission? If you haven't been to anything or watched, if let's say you're running for mayor against the incumbent, but you haven't been going to any of their meetings or the city council meetings or been watching and seeing how things are done, why are you running? Do you know what you're up against? I have a lot of, just because I deal with the Florida legislature, they'll run for office and they feel like, oh, I won. Okay. All right. Well, that's easy. I got staff and I'll go to Tallahassee and I'll just be voting. It doesn't work that way. Politics plays a major role in this. If you go up there and you don't know how to play the game, then you're not going to do well. You're not going to get your bills passed. You're not going to get money in the budget for your constituents. You're not going to get any type of big role like being a chair of a committee that you would like to be, or even be on the committee. You may not even get that. You've got to understand what you're walking into. What is the legislature? How often do they meet? How often are they at the Capitol? What are the main issues? What are they voting on? Have you ever seen what they're voting on? I would do that before I'd ever run for the legislature because it is a total different ball game.
Well, the same thing with school boards.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think hey, I'm for the kids. They don't realize that school boards maintain a very, very expensive business. And they've got to know construction. They've got to know electrical issues. Contracts. Yeah. They have to know all of these different things that may come up that they have no idea that's not even related to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, that's the very reason I am doing these podcasts. I noticed when I came into office, it took a little while, but I realized that because I'd come from a business background, a lot of stuff that was happening on boards, it seemed as though people they couldn't read a budget. They didn't understand a profit and loss. They had no idea of what their roles and responsibilities were on a board. And they let staff lead them around by a ring in their nose, and whatever staff said they did, which is not really how it's supposed to work. I'm doing this because probably the only thing that I wanted to do as mayor that I didn't manage to do was to get some kind of third-party training, not city employees training council members, but somebody who was independent training council members into their roles and responsibilities. So I'm with you 100% on all of those things.
Can you stay calm under pressure?
Before, I would say maybe 10 years ago, you would have to really be calm under pressure. Nowadays, because of social media and because of clicks, maybe it's not as important. If you show a lot of passion, you may get more views on social media. And if that's what you want, then that's what you'll get. Being calm under pressure is extremely important because you as a mayor, a legislator, a congressman, you're getting calls from everybody, your constituents, from other legislators or congressmen, or from the executive branch, or from a lobbyist. I mean, everybody's pulling you.
We're just crazy.
But they're pulling you in every single direction. You have got to maintain a certain stability to really come out sane.
If you don't, your executive brain doesn't work. You can't make choices and decisions if you're all wound up. It fries your brain.
Right. You may then make a bad decision.
Right.
One important thing, and I'm going to ask Natalie this too, is this the right time in your life? Do you have all your ducks in the row? What about that big loan you have? You got a big loan, 3 cards that you have to pay off,
See,
are maxed out?
That's a really good question. Is this the right time in your life to be a public servant? Remember, again, this is not about your ego, even though some of them are. Yes, we know that.
Not supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be. Is this the right time in your life? I do appreciate those people pushing things aside, saying, this is not the right time in my life now. I have kids that are 3, 5, and 7, and I want to spend time with them. I do appreciate that. Financially, you're not secure. You need to provide for your family. Or there could be so many different things, but you really need to take a good look at that before you go out and before you run for mayor, because anybody knows, and you know how much time and effort, your health is affected, your mental health is impacted. There's so many things that go along with it, and there are a lot of things that come out of it if you're not prepared and if it's not the right time. You don't want to have a divorce going through that. Things like that happen all the time.
And just before the election, it infiltrates your being. Your sleep. You may wake up during the night planning this and thinking about it and worrying about this or that and the other.
I just have this little story here. When you just said that, it hit me that I didn't sleep for a couple of days because of this, but I was working on something actually for my brother. I was running his campaign, and we had to translate it into Spanish. And I had this translator, and she translated it into Spanish. And then I had another person read it, and that other person read it and said, "Are you sure you want to say this?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I already had it sent to the press. And she goes, "No, this is exactly what your brother's not saying. I mean, he did not want this." And it was because the way she translated it turned it into just the opposite of what my brother was saying. I didn't sleep for a couple of nights just for things like that. Definitely, my brother would have gotten destroyed because of that, because he was never saying that. But because the way she translated it, and she spoke the Spanish differently than a lot of the Spanish people in there.
I think we've covered a lot of it, unless there's some more things you need to cover, or unless, Jen, if you had any questions of Natalie and Evelyn.
Yes, I have a couple. You said the legislatures have a short attention span. How long would you say you have? 15 minutes before they start fading away on you, or?
You would probably want to see if you can get a 15-minute meeting, but 15 minutes is a long time when you go in and you're talking with them, unless they start asking you questions. But when you go in with your purpose, you go in with your one pager and you have your request and then your backup information and your story. When I go in and I talk to my advocates, especially, I do some work for caregivers. I always want to try to get money in the budget for caregivers. We always do a training for them. And I say, when you go in, remember, you place that one pager in front of them, and you'll give them a little bit of an opportunity as you're sitting down, and you just kind of build that relationship. "Oh, yes, I went to your university," or, you're bonding. And then you say, "Senator, we're here because we're asking for an additional $3 million for respite services for the state of Florida. It's in the governor's budget, it's in the department's budget, and we're asking that you place it in the budget." What you'll do is you have that backup information that on that one pager, and then I say you talk about the stories, and it's got to be brief, because once you start seeing a legislator's eyes glaze over, you lost them, and you don't want to lose them. So you want to give them that story, and then you follow up with that request again, just a reminder, that $3 million will really go far because it will serve an additional 271 individuals in the state of Florida. Then you want to have a picture with them. You want the 15 minutes because if they ask questions, and they may ask questions, which is good because that means you're engaging them. You'll want that, but I would say if you can get your business done in 5 minutes, you're good. They appreciate that. They know that you know how busy they are and all these people are pulling them and you've got that one pager. And what's going to happen when you leave and after you take a picture, they're going to say to their assistant, put that on my budget list to make sure we get that in the budget.
Because you're respecting them.
Yes.
It goes back to respect again. What was your other question, Jen?
There's a congressional race here in Utah, and the two people who are running, as I looked at their positions on their respective websites, I saw that they were almost identical. However, in my mind, Phil Lyman is far more superior, the candidate, but she's the incumbent. He's trying to expose a lot of the corruption here in Utah, and a lot of people are slowly getting on board with him. But because their platforms are the same, they look the same on their websites. What do you feel about that, Natalie? Do you think that he should break out and really call out a couple things that are different from her in the audience's mind, in the voters' minds? What do you think about that?
Well, that's really hard for me to even respond to because I don't know about the races and I'd hate to respond because there's probably so many different things going on there. But let's look at this. Let's say you're running against somebody and you basically have the same views. There are some differences. You can always find the differences. But then it also goes with integrity too. So I also look at integrity of an individual. Have they come in and did they come in and promise a lot of things and they didn't deliver? Well, that's maybe not the person you really want to vote for. Because we get a lot of broken promises constantly. We get a lot of broken promises. I look at integrity. I look at how they really focus on their constituents.
Amen.
What their constituents want. What are they asking for? Are they focusing on their constituents or are they voting a certain way because maybe their party or their speaker or whoever? Again, I don't know all the nuances of that particular issue, but are they against it or they're for it or something like that? So you want to look at integrity of an individual. You got to see how they focus on their constituents and what they do with their constituents. And I'm sure that you'll be able to find some issues that you probably align a little bit more with one of them over the other. When you go in and you look at how they vote, there's ways of looking to see how individuals vote. Now, you have to always remember when you look at that, like on Congress, I think there's a congressional. I know at the state level, I'm not sure at every state, but I know at least my state, you can see how people vote. You got to really go in and read the bill and understand the bill. Integrity to me is very, very important.
The dividing line that I needed to hear. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
So any final words from the Kellys? Listen.
Make sure that you are a person that listens. Natalie today had a lady come up while we were trying to sell books.
Yes. Yes.
And she was talking to Natalie, and Natalie stayed and listened to her because her husband had died, and she was telling us not anything related to our book, but Natalie was concerned and listened to her.
It's got to be genuine. This other lady that was standing behind her, she was kind of fidgeting, and I knew she wanted to buy a book. I may have lost the sale of a book. This lady just lost her husband. When you go into public service, you really need to go in with a heart and you need to listen. But it's much more than listen. It's also follow through. There's an integrity part. Follow through with your promises or what your constituents want. All about the constituents.
One of the things that I found really helpful in keeping my equilibrium was to remember always, it is not about me. It is about the community. It is about the voters. It is about the people. And that applies too when people are being horrible. It's not about me. They're being horrible. What's about me is how I respond. I'm so thrilled that the two of you agreed to come and that you brought other family members into it by default almost, because I think it's incredibly unique and rare for anybody to have an opportunity to hear from people who have done it in terms of being in office, running for office, living it for 40 years or more, advocating. Invaluable. Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is what, when we start out speaking, I start out telling how we got into travel. It was because I ran for office and lost.
By a few votes.
My husband said,
By 3 votes?
So hard on this. Why don't you two go to Europe? That is the way we began telling about how we got into travel and eventually into writing. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I know sometimes I say I win either way. If I win, I get the office. I can do some really constructive things. If I don't win, I have a life.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming tonight.
And Jen, thank you for coming
Yes,
in.
thank you. We appreciate the
Very good
questions.
questions you ask. Yes.
Thank you for your information and input. I really appreciate it.
Good night, everybody.
And
Thank
good
you.
night.
Bye.